Etsy has always said they didn't want to be the mass-produced products. And we believe them. I still believe them. But what are they doing now, saying that they're going to allow Chinese sellers easier access to the platform? I mean, all along, AliExpress, they didn't want to be those guys. They didn't want to be Temu. What is going on? So, Chris, let's talk about this. You brought this to my attention, and now I'm a little upset, to be honest with you, because they are kind of going against their word, at least how I see it.
So, and that's an interesting take to me. And where this came from is, again, our friends over at Value Added Resource published an article about a change in the terms of service. If you guys are trying to keep up with all of the changes in terms of service, this is usually a good place to go, because they kind of watch these things like a hawk. And as soon as they see that a change was made, they come in and they start to evaluate the difference. And what they found was, back at the beginning of March, a few weeks ago, I think it was March 4th or 5th, that Etsy greenlit China for Etsy payment eligibility. So Chinese sellers via the Payoneer partnership. So they're not paying directly, they're paying through Payoneer like they do with a few other countries. I think Argentina, for example, is on that list. And all this is so far, Scott, is the ability for someone in China to potentially onboard with Etsy payments now. Right. And I think a lot of the reaction that I saw in the seller forums, a lot of the reaction that I saw even just to this article, and a little bit of what I heard from you just now, is the assumption, and this is something I want to have a conversation about with you, the assumption that this is a bad thing. And I guess the question that I would have for you is, what is the difference in your mind between a truly handmade seller in China and a handmade seller in Chinatown in New York City? Right? Like, is there a difference there? Or is your concern more on the fact that it's much harder to police exactly what's going on, and we may see some taking advantage of the international shipping rules like we see with Temu, right? Like, obviously they have more production capability on some of these things. So where is the actual concern in your head on this, and where does that come from, other than them just saying, hey, maybe we'll let Chinese people sell on the platform?
Yeah, well, I think you bring up a great point. Like, my first reaction was, we have so much like going on right now within the US as far as sellers having issues, right? And I don't mean just issues like with product. I'm saying like onboarding like legit US, shops for handmade. I'm not against letting other countries on the platform. I'm actually a fan of it, because that allows us to more buyers, obviously. But where the rub is for me, and maybe I'm wrong, is when we're making it easy for them to get on the platform, then we're also making it easy for things to happen that have happened with Temu. And I guess that's my concern is, Etsy has always been known as handmade, or at least personalized, and not just mass-produced type items like AliExpress, Alibaba. And because of that, it almost seems like they're opening the door. And if you're opening the door there, is it going to get flooded with products like Temu? And I think that's the concern I have. And I would like to know if anyone else that's watching this video is concerned with that as well. Leave it in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Let us know your thoughts. What do you think about this? Just let us know. We'd appreciate that. Oh, Chris, also, I should probably do this. If you guys would like more news on Etsy and really just get it straight from the source, you can go right to the site that Chris just shared, or you can subscribe to our channel, and you can get more news and updates, because we're on it as well. So, Chris, that's my thoughts. That's my thoughts. I'm curious your thoughts. You sound a little bit more like maybe you're just coming at it from like, well, it's not really, they're not letting them on.
I don't think you and I actually disagree on this. I think it just sounds like we disagree on this. And that's why I wanted to probe a little bit deeper to see where your pushback is. I think you and I agree, at least from the perspective of everybody anywhere should have this as an opportunity. Is that an accurate statement?
Absolutely.
Okay. So everybody anywhere, any country in the world, we think should be able to sell on the platform, as long as they're doing it within the terms of service. I think where the pushback comes in, and I think you and I actually agree on this, although it may not sound like it based on, my version of this versus your version of this.
Right. Sure.
And I think you just phrased this really well. You said, are they opening the door? And your concern, and let me repeat this back to you and make sure that I got this correct, is that by allowing the billion plus people in China to potentially sell on the platform, you without first fixing the holes in the bucket, right? Where we're having issues with drop shipping, where we're having issues with AI takedowns, where we're having issues with a lot of these things for existing sellers.
With
That by
chatbot
opening
scammers and all of the other things that we got going on. It's like we're just adding another thing before we've actually corrected the other things. And I like your analogy of the leaky bucket. We have a leaky bucket on Etsy right now. I mean, heck, Etsy doesn't even give us support.
So, okay. And I guess there's two different concerns here that I want to talk through with you. The first one would be the onboarding process, right? How are we vetting sellers on the front end? And do you think that Etsy's new onboarding process with the $15 fee and the extra verifications, do you think that that doesn't enough on the front end to at least get us past that first hurdle of people just spam creating accounts and that being a potential concern?
Yeah, no, I think that is the big concern, because there's, they've already said that, and I don't know if there's proof behind it, but there has been, Chinese, I don't even know if they're sellers, buyers, probably buyers, I believe, that are getting information to take over accounts. Like that has been said. So I think it's like you said, I'm not against having other countries selling on the platform. My thing is like right now, we have a lot of things that need to be shored up before you go ahead and open up that other door. Get everything else kind of fixed, then open the door, right? And then that way there, everything's dialed in. Chris, pull up the article though. I'm curious to see what their take was on the whole thing and kind of like what they're highlighting.
And I think this second concern here, Scott, and this is the one that I wanted to get to next, because if we get past the first hurdle of, okay, if we green light them, then that discourages shady behavior, right?
Yep.
And if we have some of the barriers in place to begin with, where there's a $15 account fee, the chances of them going and creating 500 accounts, whether they're in China, India, the US, right, wherever they're operating from a bad intent perspective, that's probably going to go away. But I think the other concern here, and this I think is where you and I have a lot of common ground, I think most people would agree with us. The main reason we start to see pushback, and it's like, why would we let Chinese sellers on the platform, right? That's how it comes out of most people's mouths. But what the real concern is, I think, is this second chunk here, which is counterfeit IP and drop shipping, right? In this article, they refer to it as the AliExpress, right? Drop shipping type method. And I think that is a valid concern, but I would also say it doesn't really matter where your IP address is located. Like anybody can buy stuff from AliExpress and have it shipped to the US. And I think the argument back from somebody on the other side was it's not as cheap or as easy as someone who's on the ground in China that has access to those things. Okay, but are we worried about that? Or are we worried about the competition? And I think it really comes down to the competition side of this.
Yeah.
Is there going to be more junk in the short term if they truly greenlight and this is not just a beta or a test? Yeah, potentially. But that just means Etsy needs to get better about enforcing current policies. If the current policies that they had were enforced, is there still a problem here other than you don't want more competition? And that, I guess, is the grain of truth in this that I'm looking for, is like, in my mind, as long as policies are being followed, I don't care. The problem currently is that, yes, we don't have some seller support that we would want, but really they've had historical issues enforcing the policies with the way that things are set up. And so what I would want to know from Etsy is, do they think that by greenlighting this, that it'll be easier to enforce policies because they're more transparent, meaning people will do things in a more legitimate way and it's easier to track and trace and do some of those kinds of things? If that's the case, then yeah, like, let's do it. Let's just greenlight the whole world and then we don't have to worry about it. If that's not the case, and we're going to see a big spike in more drop shipping, in more non-handmade or handmade with production partner type things, that's, we don't want Etsy to turn into Temu. And I think that's the feeling that most people have. It's just hard to express that without it coming out as like, I can't believe they greenlit China to come on the platform, right? Yeah. So is there anything I'm missing here?
No. I want you to read the next part though of her concern. I think it was her that wrote the article. While Etsy says it stepped up enforcement in recent times, the increasing use of AI has led to many legitimate handmade items being caught in the automated bot dragnet, harming real sellers while leaving some of the most how do you pronounce that one, Chris? Give me that one. Yeah, there you go. That one. Violators free to sell on the site. So
egregious. Yeah.
Whatever it is.
No,
yeah.
just
So like I get this point. And again, I think that's the fear. And anyone that's like an OG of Etsy, right? They're really concerned. They're even concerned with the pod sellers like us, right? Like it's like, wait a minute. Like, so I understand it. But I'm looking at it as far as there's so many things, right? Let's, we don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but we'll just touch on it. Look at all of the Disney stuff that's still being allowed, right? All of the stuff that we know that these people don't have the licenses. Pretty much we know that not everyone has a license to Disney stuff, right? There was something recently with Taylor Swift, right? That got taken down, but there's still a whole bunch of Taylor Swift stuff up there. Why aren't we spending the time and the energy to clean up the marketplace versus adding more buyers and sellers on the platform before you fix the platform? That's just my thing. Am I the only one? Let me know in the comments. Am I the only one that is feeling that way? I guess that's my only concern. Am I excited that they're trying to bring more buyers on? Yeah, of course. But does it also bring concern that there's still a lot of things that need to be fixed?
So I guess the question I have in my head, Scott, is there a point here where they're just saying, look, we have X level of manipulation of trademarks of IP, right? That's going to happen on the platform regardless. Doing it this way may help us with that, because at some point the AI detection is going to get good enough that they overcome that. And so, there is an argument to be made for the what's the word that I'm looking? The inoculation, right? Where we know, like, you go get a shot for the flu or whatever, like you feel like junk for the first few days, and then, it should help protect you from feeling worse later on, right? So are they okay with a potential increase in the short term of some of those kinds of things to help them get over the hurdle to detect it better in the future? That's the rose-colored glasses version of this. Or do they think that actually just green lighting sellers will reduce that? Or is it just totally independent, right? Those are kind of our three options, where we're saying, look, we need to onboard more people, both buyers and sellers, and we're going to have a static level of IP infringement, be it Disney, Taylor Swift, Luke Combs, right? Whoever. And we have to accept that at this point. We're learning how to deal with that in a better and better way. And so we might as well just bite the bullet and do this now, because it's not going to make a huge change in our minds based on our data, our being Etsy, right? To this whole thing. That's where I don't know, because we don't have the internal data at Etsy, right? And the argument that I would make here is, well, if we want to get better at solving this problem, the more data we have, the better off we're going to be. Does it suck in the short term? Potentially, right? If we assume that they are going to be doing a lot of these violative things because they have easy access to the opportunity to do it. So, Scott, what we really don't know at this point is if this is a good thing or a bad thing. Is this going to increase IP infringement long term? Is it just going to open up the marketplace long term to more buyers and more sellers, meaning more competition or more opportunity, I guess, and more opportunity? And I think at this point, that's a decision everybody has to make for themselves. I'm curious, Scott, about your thoughts, but I also want to know from everybody who's watching this, what are your thoughts? Is this going to be a good thing for the Etsy platform? Is it going to help us move into more buyers and more opportunity? Or do you think that this is going to be a net negative because of the temptation and the ease of which traditionally we've seen Chinese sellers be able to come into a platform like Amazon, like Temu, like a few of these other places, and kind of take advantage of the infrastructure that they have to increase the amount of non-compliant things, be it trademark infringement or just non-handmade things on the platform?